Mr. Gale, when did you enlist in the service, or were you drafted?
I was drafted.
Okay.
Yeah, I got one of them letters that had kind of scroll type paper on there. It says, "Congratulations, you are now enlisted or now inducted into the Army of the United States of America." And I looked high and low for that paper. I never could find it, so it's gone.
Right.
It was March the 15th, 1943,
Okay.
when I went in.
So you had to report then to Fort Hayes, or
I reported, of course, first I went to Athens to get my physical
okay.
down there. And then I went to Fort Hayes to get my outfit, my equipment, and all that Army stuff. And they sent my other civilian clothes back home. But you know, there was one thing about Fort Hayes that I really liked was the food they had there. They had every imaginable type of food that you wanted to eat. For breakfast, there was everything there: oats, meals, coffee, fruit, hams, bacon, everything. And the same thing happened with the dinner. They had all the meats that you could think of, all the mashed potatoes, all that stuff. I said, I'm never going to get out of this army. But when I got to California, that changed real quick because the meals didn't come that way. It came out of cans and boxes and stuff like that. So that idea of staying in the army just for that food, it was gone. Yeah, it left. You know.
So how long were you in California then?
I was in California till August, and then we went to Fort Pierce, Florida. We were starting to get ready for one of the invasions. We knew, of course, there's always rumors flying around. So we took our training, basic training down there of amphibious training. The the second, what was it? Yeah, the Rangers. There was a fence between us,
Mm-hmm.
and they weren't allowed to talk to anybody. They didn't talk to us. But they trained in the nighttime. We trained in the daytime. We were doing the same training that they was, and they were a type of people. I don't know whether you know much about Rangers or
A
not.
little bit.
Yeah, a lot of them got a choice of either going to prison or going into the army. I mean, they were felons and they committed robberies and different things. They were orphans, uh, people that really didn't have nobody, really. And they just didn't care. And we kind of adopted their kind of training. So, boy, I'm telling you, things got different. We didn't know where we was going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we was going to go to the Pacific or go to the Atlantic or where. But we went from there we went to England. And then England we went to, we stayed there till, I think it was around April or something like that. And so forth. So, well, you want a little more history of my.
What unit? Yeah, and what unit were you in?
I was with the 6th Engineers Special Brigade.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got that all wrote down there.
Okay.
It'd be easier for me to bring this up. I got all this stuff out here. But anyhow, I get a little bit more history here for you.
Okay.
Oh, I probably got a little bit ahead of myself there. We, from Fort Pierce, Florida, we shipped to New York Harbor for physicals and overseas shots, and then by boat to England. In England, we took extensive training there and practiced beach landings. They called them mock-up invasion type things.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of trained you like you was going in on the beach. So on April the 28th, 1944, approximately 5 weeks from D-Day, unbelievable disasters and foul-ups happened. We were preparing for D-Day. We set out early, a very dark morning, heading for Slapton Sands, a beachhead on southwest coast of England. 25,000 men participated in this exercise. The 25,000 men boarded 8 LSTs. Soldiers and Navy personnel escorted by the English Navy. The operation was called Tiger.
Okay.
All hell broke loose. 9 German E-boats leave the harbor at Cherbourg, France, on a regular patrol, picked up some of the radio signals, then headed for Slapton Sands. At 2:30 a.m., E-boats torpedoed 3 LSTs and sank them. Figures of the Army and Navy were killed, drowned, and burnt to death were never substantiated, but set at approximately 1,000 men. Over 200 of these were men of my outfit. Let's see. Slapton Sands was very similar in layout, and the terrain was as Utah Beach in France. So this is the reason that they picked that, because the terrain and everything would be just like going in on Utah Beach in Normandy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see, there was something here about these guys. Well, I was going to say here, I went in on Omaha Beach on the 7th. I was there on the 5th waiting to get in.
Mhm.
We was in the combat area. Now, our monuments and things on Omaha Beach indicates that we were there on June the 6th, 1944. We were there in combat waters because it was the channel was infested with E-boats in there all the time, you know, and we had to get several alarms. So, but on my discharge, my D-224, I'm listed as going in on the 7th. But we were actually there on the 5th, in the channel, waiting to get in. Now, Eisenhower had it for the June 5th would be the invasion, but it was too choppy. I mean, we just couldn't get in. It's just like you say. I went in on Omaha, all 5 beaches, and most deadly of all. That was the Omaha Beach was the most deadly. I think it was about 1,300 killed that first day.
Right.
The seas, enemy, naval shelling were all very unkind on D-Day. Around 1,000 killed on the first day. We went in behind the Rangers. See Private Ryan, the movie, a very good depiction of what actually took place there. We was with went in with 29th Infantry Division.
Okay. So you did actually, your unit went in on June 6th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the unit did,
Right.
yeah. So, a lot of men cracked under severe fear and so forth. I recall one man, young fellow, was running down the beach. He was hollering, "Stop that freight train that's running over me." I tried to trip him to get him stopped, slow down.
Right.
But when he got just a few feet from me, he got killed, you know. And it's wrote up in one of the books I've got on D-Day that somebody wrote. But it don't have my name in there, but I'm the guy that tried to stop him.
Okay.
And of course we would gather those type of people up and send them back to England as soon as we could.
Right. Do you know what wave you were in, or about what time you hit the beach? I know you probably weren't checking your watch.
I don't recall. I'll tell you why. I was actually in the state of stupor when I went in, because we was sitting out there in that channel waiting to come in. For 2 days we was sitting out there.
Mm-hmm.
No sleep. Had our fuel packs all ready to go. Wasn't allowed to sleep. About 4 o'clock in the morning, they come along and said, "Everybody line up." They give us a pill about that long. And I know it was a tranquilizer. And we was already in a state of stupor from not sleeping, you know. They had 2 officers there. One officer handed you the pill in a little Dixie cup, a little tiny Dixie cup. The other officer, he said, "Let me see you swallow that." Gave me a little bit of water, you know. And he says, "Open up your mouth." There's a lot of guys who hide it underneath their tongue, you know. And never did tell us what it was, but I'm satisfied with a tranquilizer. Because when they give us that tranquilizer pill, I just didn't care. It was just something I just didn't care. A lot of the guys didn't remember that. Some of them did. But that was 4 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
So we went in right after that sometime.
Did they get you close to the beach, or did you have to get out in the water? And I know a lot of them had to get out in deep water.
Well, this was the hard part because we had an awful hard time getting in because we was under heavy fire every time they tried to leave that ramp down. And I was up in the front because I was a squad leader. I had 10 men. And they'd start to leave that ramp down, and you know. So we tell that Navy guy who's running the LST, you know, let's try someplace else. We kept moving. I don't know. We must have been out there 45 minutes trying to get in. And all at once he says, fellas, he says, I'm going to open up that ramp and it's going to stay open. Oh, I don't know. I don't think you are. You're going to do what we're going to tell you what to do. So pretty soon he says, hey, I'm about out of fuel. Those were diesels, those LSTs. They're 12-cylinder diesels is what they was. He says, I'm about out of fuel. Now, if we all want to die right here in this water, okay, we'll stay. We'll try to land. We'll get you off of here. He says, okay, let's put the ramp down. Yeah, we had young fellows that wasn't very tall. Water was up to here. He's holding their gas mask and their gun up here, you know. But you've seen a lot of blue water change to red pretty quick there after that. But it was extremely difficult trying to get in. And after we got in, first thing that happened to me was this airplane came over. And as I getting off of the beach here, this mound of sand came up right in front of me like that, you know. I said, is that a mirage or what am I looking at, you know? And I looked around the back and here's that tail end of a bomb sticking up out of there. And I said, hey, I'm getting out of here, buddy, in a hurry. But it didn't blow, as far as I know. It was a dud.
Right.
But just to see that mound of sand come up was something that I thought was kind of an illusion that I was having of some kind.
Sure.
Yeah. But our mission was to set up a transfer point for transforming material from ducks and trucks coming in and setting up the transfer area where trucks would pick it up and take it back into the areas that needed it. But you know, there's one thing that I always noticed, that the way they would tell you, they never said to kill. They never used the word kill. They'd say, don't take no prisoners. So what does that mean? And, well, we had no place to put them. Our first prison, well, the guys drew us a big circle in the sand and told them prisoners, don't you step outside of that circle. And, burial corps, I don't know what happened to them, whether they all got killed or what. But they called our outfit back. We was already in a little town by the name of Versailles. Did you ever hear of that? Versailles? That's where all hell broke loose back in there. We lost a lot of men back in there. That's where the 88s came into effect back in there. And the first church steeple that we ran into there, they had Germans up in there, and they had the radios in there, and they would radio back to the big guns back there, the 88s.
Right.
And on D2 that was our first, everybody was out of ammunition. And that was the first truckload of ammunition that came in. And I was about 25, 30 feet from it. And the first thing, one of them 88s hit that truck. Well, here I am, 25, 30 feet. And here goes the driver going through the air, still holding on to the steering wheel. Why I didn't get any of it? All that ammunition went all straight up in the air, just like that. Mm-hmm. Nothing flared out like this, you know. And I said, well, good luck. I think that's the day Eisenhower came in too on the beach. And he handed out a lot of Purple Hearts and things to a lot of our outfit and different outfits.
Sure.
But you had to watch them church steeples. That's when the paratroopers came in and got them out of there. I had one big Indian in my squad. I'll never forget him as long as I live. We was in Quonset huts in Wales. This is right before the invasion. He was about 6 foot, 6'4". He was a big man.
Wow.
And he come crawling to my bunk every night. He says, Corporal, he said, you got to get me out of here. He says, I can't take this. I just pat him on the head like a little dog, you know. And I say, oh, you're going to be okay. You just stay with me. I'm going to take care of you. He crawled back and get in his bunk and come back. About a half hour later, he come back again. Well, when he got on that beach, he went wild. He just went wild. He's going to take that whole outfit on back there. He stormed that church steeple, and they got him. So, we, like I say, we seen a lot of boys just lose it. I mean, it's gone. I mean, you know, they just, the sanity was just left them. We was on night patrol. Me and another corporal, he had his squad, and I had mine. This was about 12 o'clock at night. And I knew he was in German territory. And this plane came along, and how he spotted us, I'll never know. And I have to guess somebody lit a cigarette when they wasn't supposed to. This is like in dark. Well, this plane started to strafe us. And every fifth of one of them was a tracer. A tracer just light up the place just almost like daylight, you know. And this other corporal, he just lost it. He just started screaming and hollering. And he started to light a cigarette with a Zippo. And I slapped him across the face. I had to do something, because I knew there was Germans up there. And got him quieted down. I took his cigarettes away from him and his lighter. So his men come up to me and said, we're not going with him, we're going with you. Well, I said, we got to take him along, so now let's settle down here a little bit. I said, this can happen to anybody. So we took him along that night with us, because we just found us a place to bed down a little bit. Of course, you always had somebody on guard all the time, take time every 4 hours. until daylight, till the rest of our outfit got caught up with us. But I'll never forget that guy as long as I live. He was from New Lexington.
Really?
I tried to get to see him several times, and I think he seen me come up the walk or up there, and they'd never answered the door, and I knew they were home.
Mm-hmm.
But he was embarrassed. I know he was embarrassed. But I wasn't going to bring up anything to him, I just wanted to see how he's getting along. But he died on me, and I never did get to see him. I got to see his wife. She finally came to the door. I knew something was going on. Oh, he said Gerald passed away. So, I hated that. I really hated that. I mean, when you go up and see shit slap on your... But I had to get him quieted down.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that done it. And I done it so fast and quick, I didn't even realize I done it, really.
Right. It was just a reaction.
The reaction was just that swift, yeah.
So you were at Versailles, and then did you end up pushing in through Normandy then?
Oh yeah. Now, we were looking for a bivouac area, is what we was looking for. So what we found out afterwards, I don't know, it was the fifth or sixth day, we landed in a kind of an orchard-like, and there was a pasture field there, and cows in there. And we said, well, this would be a good place to bivouac and set up camp. Because you could see some of the cows laying around different places. They would just feet up in the air. They'd have stepped on a mine, But that's where we landed. Then we had to go back to the beach and set up this transfer station and bury the dead. That was something. Yeah, we'd somebody'd holler, I need a leg here, I need an arm here. But we tried to match them up the best we could. We just didn't pick up a leg or something like that and put it over there. We tried to match them up for a little bit. But my biggest job was getting the rings off their finger and getting one dog tag off, leave one dog tag on. But I'm trying to get the rings off the finger. Everybody seemed to die like this. I said, I couldn't do it.
Right.
So this major comes along. He says, son, he said, if I show you how to do it, will you do it? They didn't force us because we weren't an outfit to do this, I said, yeah, I'll do it. So he said, let me see your jackknife. So he took hold the blade and crack that knuckle there and straighten it out. He said, can you do that? I said, it's going to be difficult, but I'm going to do it because I'm telling you, I think that their parents, girlfriend, or wife, or whoever would be interested in seeing that, and it would help identify it and so forth, So I did. And we buried him right on the beach. We didn't know where to put him. Well, as soon as the high tide came in, boom, all the sand and everything is washed off from him until you see that burial up on the hill up there where they finally took him. But we done just a little bit of everything, whatever you had to do. I don't know, is there anything else you...
So then did you end up going through Europe? Did you end up like at the Bulge and that, or did you?
No. I didn't have to go to the Bulge. We lined up there one day, lined the whole company up. He called out names at step forward, step forward. And that's where they went to the vault. We stayed there in France. There was and most of these that they sent, well, were guys that, you might say, weren't team players or something like that. We had other names for them, But no, I didn't have to go. So about half of the company did go. I had a brother-in-law that went to the Bulge. No, I was pretty fortunate in that.
So when did you get out of the service?
46.
Okay.
January of 46. Yeah. I'll never forget that chaplain. We had got her discharge in his chapel. They called us forward, or called our names out, and went up to the altar there and got the discharge. Well, after we all sat down, he said, "Now, if you fellows think you're going to leave here and go right back to where you was before you came in the Army," he says, "it ain't going to happen." I thought to myself, I says, "God, fellow, you weren't where we was at, We're glad to get back here and get going, But he was right. He was right. It was good for about 2 weeks. And then you say, something ain't right here, Because it's not the Army. You're doing something every day in there,
Mm-hmm.
And I was just lost. Just actually lost. I think it just more or less went into depression. I think it's just probably what happened. Because just the Army, when you was in there about 3 years, it made a big change in you, really. So,
Had you gone back to Gloucester?
yeah, I went back, stayed with my folks for a while, yeah. Yeah, I went back to I was actually in Hollister's where it was at, but our mailing address was Gloucester. Yeah, I just a small town, maybe 300 people or something like that. It's a small place. It was home then, back in the hills, I always called it. And from there, I came up here.
Did it take you a while before you could talk about this, or have you always
About 50 years.
Has it?
It's 50 years before I even opened up about it.
What made you open up?
Well, that was our first Army reunion we ever had of the outfit. I happened to see it in the American Legion or something. They've always got a listing there of reunions and stuff like that. And somebody had it in there. And I wrote to him. I says, I'm glad somebody had the audacity to take a hold of this thing and get these guys together while there's some left.
Mm-hmm.
So it was 50 years, and it kind of broke the ice a little bit. And just to get around and wait for the other fellow, maybe him to start something or say something, and somebody would kind of join in, And you try to get it out of your system, But there's the things that I guess you probably remember the most is probably the gory things, That's always something that'll stay with you. You can remember that real well, But I'll never forget the night we landed in England. We stayed in billets. That's what people call the houses, billets, We stayed with 2 old retired teachers, school teachers. They were sisters, never married or anything. And God, when they unloaded 6 soldiers to come in there at night, 12 o'clock, midnight, Them girls and ladies was shaking, you know. So, to give us one room upstairs, nothing in there but a bare floor. So we just lay our blankets down, and we just all slept on the floor, you know. Wouldn't take your clothes off. You didn't dare to take your clothes off, 'cause there's bombing over there every night. But I finally got to talk to one of the girls, the oldest one. I says, I'm in charge here, and I says, I want you to just kind of give you some kind of relief here. I says, I'm going to take care of things. These boys are not going to bother nothing. They're not going to bother you or nothing else like that. They had what they called the Cockington Club down below us, you know. And me and another fellow from another billet, he wasn't in the same billet, we got together. We'd get down there. We'd maybe stay there at 12 o'clock at night, you know. She'd be sitting there waiting on me. She didn't go to bed till I went upstairs, you know. And they always had duties to do, no matter how old they was. They had something that they had to do. If you was real old, you had to do something sitting down. They had sitting down stuff, you know. And so one day, they both had to go out at the same time. There's nobody going to be left in the house. So she invited us downstairs for the first time. And this was after 3 or 4 weeks we'd already been there. And they put a pound note up on the mantel there over the grate, or the fireplace. I said, boys, you see that? I says, that's a trick right there. I says, this is a test also. So when he got back home, I thanked her for, well, she made some tea and stuff for us, because it was great on tea, you know. And I thanked her for leaving downstairs to sit on some furniture for a change. We're sitting in there on the bare floor upstairs, you know. Sitting up there with your, like this here, right straight down on the floor. And she looked up on the mantel. I seen her look. Everything was intact, but everything was okay from her on. The house was ours. The house was ours.
She knew she could trust you.
We had to let her gain our trust, yeah. Well, I can understand.
Oh.
But she was dying when we was getting ready to go on invasion. She was dying. She called for me up to her bedroom. She was laying in bed. And she wanted to talk to me about America and different things, you know. She wanted my address back home. And she wanted my address for the outfit and everything, because she wrote me quite a few letters. But she died, shortly after that, I guess, after the invasion. Yeah, I'll never forget that.
Do you still have those letters, or?
You know, a lot of my stuff is gone. I don't know. My wife was, she had a little dementia. I take care of her about 4 or 5 years here at the house. And then when she got the Parkinson's disease so bad, she kept falling down. And I got to hurt my back so bad, picking her up, you know. And then I just went and put her in Sharonbrook up here.
Right.
Because I just couldn't take care of her. But she moved stuff around. I didn't know what was going on.
Right.
So much of my pictures of the war and everything is gone. They're probably here someplace if I can find them. I have got one picture of myself when I was in service. You said something about you wanted
Right.
one.
Um, have you been to the World War II memorial? Have you done an honor flight?
I've been there twice. I went there with the honor flight in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I signed up for it was a year later before we got to go because it didn't take that many.
I was just over in Washington and just saw it.
Did you?
That's some memorial, I think.
Well, you see, they always take a guardian too. Of course, the guardian had to pay for their own,
Right.
in which they came in handy. Shove you around in a wheelchair if you needed one. I'd done both. I walked with my cane, and the guardian there was from Dublin, I think.
What was your birth date? I should have asked you that first.
My birth date was February the 16th, 1923.
And what year did you come to Licking County? Do you know? Remember?
Yeah, I can tell you. 1951.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if a high school student would come up to you and ask you what you think a teenager now should remember about a World War II veteran, what would you answer them? You know?
What a teenager would know?
What a teenager should remember about a World War II veteran.
Well, I guess we're going to say freedom is the big word. I said, would we have a bunch of Japanese here running this country? Would we have a bunch of Germans running this country? I said we had German subs right on our coastline there below Florida that people don't know about probably. I said it was closed. And I think it's just changed the world. World War II. It changed our course of living completely. If you want to just turn it over, it's completely changed. Look at all the medications and warfare and different things that came out of that war that probably would never implemented if it wouldn't have happened. So I say freedom is the big word. Any way you want to cut it, really.
Okay.
I mean, I think that it created opportunities that we would have never had if this would have never happened. I mean, that's what I'm thinking now.
Right. Well, I appreciate you taking time to talk about it, so that everybody can hear it from your words. What you mentioned, Saving Private Ryan, was that hard to watch for you?
Oh, definitely. Oh, definitely. I went the night that I went. I heard a lot of sniffling in there. Maybe I had a few drops coming down too. I don't know. Yeah, it was. The depiction of that was so well put together. Of course, they had a World War II guy helping out in that.
Yeah.
Which probably had helped out quite a bit. I'll tell you, the movie I really got a kick out of was that Forrest Gump. Did you see that?
I've seen parts of it.
I got a big kick out of that there. Him and that Gary Denise, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You call him Lieutenant Dan, you know. He drinks all that Coca-Cola, bottle after bottle, and he says, I gotta pee.